is November 28th, 1987. And we're going to start off by talking about a little bit of your background and your parents' background, and then we'll kind of concentrate on the Second World War. When and where did your parents come from to the United States? Oh, about what time?
Let me see, 18.
Or were they married when they came over?
No.
No?
My mother came from Galway, there in Ireland, really. And she, from Galway she came. And, must have been late 1890.
So how old were they about when they came over?
She was only about 18.
18?
Mm-hmm.
And so they came over separately?
Yeah.
With the rest of their families? Or
no,
just
alone.
They both came over alone?
They had brothers and sisters here. I don't know how they got here, but they would send money over and send them passage, and they would come and be here with them. Yeah.
So do they both just happen to settle in the same Irish
Yes.
enclave? Or?
Yes. I don't know where my mother, she worked as a housekeeper, up Pride's Crossing. And my father was a chauffeur. But he landed in Brookline Village, where his sister was. And from there, he...
So you don't really know how they met? They just...
No. I think they met up at Pride's Crossing because whoever my father was working for was up there for the summer, That's where she was.
What is Pride's Crossing?
It's up, it's right up here, Beverly.
In Beverly?
Yeah. It's an ocean, resort.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a wealthy ocean resort at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Something like Bar Harbor, at the turn of the century there.
Let me just check this and see if this is working. Here we go again. So after they were married, your father was a chauffeur?
Yep.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Your mother, she started having kids right away? So she she stopped work?
No, she never worked after
She never worked after that? How could she with 10 kids?
Yeah.
With the 10 kids, you're fifth to the oldest. Is that what we decided before? You're kind of fourth?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you, when you look back now at your childhood, did you see that they brought the girls and the boys up separately with different kinds of morals and standards, or were there different expectations? No. They had just so many that... did they want the boys to continue on to a higher education than the girls?
That was up to them. See, their way of growing up, when they grew up, when they turned 18, there's no such thing as higher education.
Right.
So they didn't know how to say to them, I want you to go to college, and how could they with the older ones, with 6 or 8 more behind them?
Yeah.
That would get out and go to work, find a job.
So support.
Yeah. And they started very early. Let me see. I think they're 12 or 13, and they were caddying at the country clubs. Down Situate. And think nothing of it, hop on their bike and go.
So they would help, and the money would come back to help the family as a whole.
Evidently, yeah. Because I'm sure they didn't keep it themselves. I don't think, because they didn't have anything. They had their bikes,
Did your mother have things at home to earn? Did she have chickens like you did here and do different? She must have learned to improvise and sew and.
Yeah, and she had a garden. Yeah. Of course, we lived in, and we lived near the blueberry patch and the blackberries, and what have in the summer. And we had our apple trees, and we had our cherry trees, and we had a little garden.
Did you feel your childhood was different from many of those around you who had smaller families, or did many of your own friends come from large families too?
No, as a matter of fact, I lived right next door to the Methodist, or a minister, the Baptist minister, right next door. And they lived in a huge house. And she had closets full of toys.
How many children lived in that house? One child?
One child.
A little jealousy there.
No.
No?
No.
Was she your age?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was up until I was in the 4th grade. And I missed it terribly when we moved up here. But no, we didn't have any feeling about she's got more than I have type thing. I never felt that way.
Were there other Irish families in your neighborhood?
No. No, absolutely no. And there was only one or two in a family. We were the large family,
Yeah. So you never, in growing up, like the kids do now, around 7th grade, they start asking what you want to be when you grow up.
No.
You just knew that you were going to go out and go to work and whatever. You didn't have a preference to be a nurse or to be a... Did you have any, expectation?
Yes. Well, of course, I went to Mass College of Art while I was on Saturdays, but I had all I could do to get the car fare to go in and get the $5 for the registration, for Saturday classes. So I knew that no way was I ever going to get to college, And on a Saturday, I was supposed to be out working in the stores, and 5 and 10 in the counters. If you were called to go in, see, the word jobs were not easy to come by.
For children or for...
Well, even high school. They really weren't.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Babysit.
If you wanted to go to school, you had to work first for the money and then go.
Yeah. And even if you did say there was always an emergency coming up, like there wasn't enough money for the taxes or something, someone was sick or the coal bills weren't paid or something, and as I said, there were so many behind us,
Yeah.
6, behind you, coming along. You were just helping out.
Did your family own a car, or did you?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
But it must have been hard to ever go anywhere as a family with 10 kids. I mean.
No, we didn't go because he worked almost 7 days a week. He was on call 7 days a week. I don't ever recall him having what you call a day. Maybe once in a while a day off. Now that sounds terrible, but now that I think of it, it's true. He used to have to take them to the opera at night, some nights at 11, 12 o'clock at night he'd come home. He never complained.
Yeah.
But then be up again at 7 o'clock. Yeah, he had an old Ford because he had to, get back and forth.
Do you think growing up in a family with 10 children made you stronger in some ways as an individual?
It taught you how to share and love one another.
What were the weaknesses of that kind of, or were there any, do you feel?
There was a little resentment and jealousy among us. I had the feeling that the oldest always got preference, and I was in the middle, and the youngest sort of got a Helen, just ignored us all because, there was 3 more girls ahead that did everything, and she could go off and do what she wanted to do, and nobody noticed,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
So how soon after high school were you married?
About 5 years.
5 years. And that was in 1940.
Mm-hmm.
And you bought this house that you live in still today, and you've been here for how many? Well, for
47 years. Yeah.
Did you own a car when you first got married?
Mm-hmm. You had to work, such as it was.
Did you work when you were first married?
I was working when I got married, and I worked out for about a year at Brigham's.
At Brigham's?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you drove the car?
I didn't drive it. I didn't have a license even. I never had a car. Didn't need one.
No, but your husband had a car then for him to get to work.
He took it to work, and I never had a car. Not until Joe was about 6 months old. Because see, there was a difference.
Walked to work.
Yeah. There was a difference. Linda was 8 when he was born, and I had that freedom for 8 years.
Yeah.
And and she was off to school, and I was just beginning to feel my oats, and all of a sudden I'm pregnant. But that was fine. I was delighted because I had so many, miscarriages in between, and we had a son and all that. It was marvelous. But after a while, I got kind of tired of, and I just wanted to get out.
Yeah.
And, even in the evening, see, I couldn't go down to Helen's or anything because someone would have to stay and babysit. for the first 6 months or so until we would dare leave him with the girls, you know, that kind of a thing.
Did you ever want a big family like the family you came from?
Never. No. 3, 4 was the most that I would ever want.
Uh-huh.
No. I didn't care what anyone said. I would never know. I could never do it.
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't living. You know?
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun, and you learned to improvise and do without, and it was, you know, it was an altogether different way of living.
Yeah. Switching to the war, when the news first came that the United States was going to enter into World War II, what was your first reaction or fear? Or fears?
I didn't think.
Did you think that your husband would be involved at that point?
No. I thought he would be. That was
Do you have any
Hawaii.
sense of time, how long after you first heard about the war, that he actually was drafted?
No.
Yeah.
No, I never gave it too much thought until actually when he said he was going to go in. It was time for him to go and sign up because things were getting bad, and he, you know, so he should.
So he signed up. He wasn't really
Well,
drafted.
I think he was of that age. He was about 28, and it was getting where they were 10 years into. They were getting to the older men, what they called older men.
Uh-huh.
And even though he was, they were getting to the married men. But even though I had Carolyn, she was about 10 months old, but she wasn't counted as a dependent. They didn't take married men with dependents, you know, children.
At first.
I don't know if they did afterwards or not. He was in 3 or 4 years. He was in 4 years.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't have a car at that time. I had the car, but I
didn't have your license.
Didn't have a license, no. And of course, gas was rationed anyway. We couldn't, you know.
So it just sat there.
No, it didn't.
Oh.
He let my brothers have it because they. Oh, my father. He let my father have it.
Because all your brothers.
They were all in.
All in the war.
5 of them, yeah.
All 5
I
brothers.
guess that's why he felt as though he, you know.
Let your father
Yeah.
have the car.
Oh yeah, he gave it to him.
Yeah.
He needed to get back because he was working in the Navy Yard somewhere.
So what was life like when all the men went away? I mean, all your brothers and your husband and probably most of your...
My brother-in-law is my sister's husband, yeah.
Yeah. So how did life change, or what was it like?
It was very, very quiet. Very, we didn't have much money anyway. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't do anything. Everything was rationed, you know. And, because I did have Carolyn. She was only a baby. And, as I said, no car. I couldn't go anywhere. I would go
Did
down
you
to my
walk?
mother's. Yes, I walked to Winchester almost 2 or 3 days a week. Or else we would come up here. You know, that kind of thing. We visited. But we had to walk.
So you had to walk to get your groceries, walk to...
Yeah.
What about house repairs and things like that? How did
It
you
wasn't
maintain
repaired.
the house?
I just maintained it. I learned on quick to stoke the furnace. You know, shovel the coal on and shake down the ash. I don't know. Somebody used to come and take the ashes out. My father, I think. Yeah. Things like that was crazy.
What about shoveling snow and
I did
all
it.
the seasons?
I did
you
it
had
myself.
to do the whole.
Yeah.
You had to do the whole kit and
Yeah.
caboodle.
Yeah.
And you.
I had chickens in the backyard. Guy next door.
So that gave you some little extra money for.
Yes, I didn't get any money for it. Though I had all kinds of eggs. I used to keep my mother supplied, myself, and my mother-in-law, and my sister-in-law, my sister. I had loads of eggs.
So how did your mother-in-law get over to visit? I mean, they must have had a car. You just had to
yeah,
rely
Clarence
on.
had a car.
Yeah.
And once in a while they'd come up, you know.
Uh-huh.
But,
So was it a lonely time for you?
it was, yeah. See, no TV, just had the radio. I did a lot of knitting and sewing. Jean used to drop in next door. I had neighbors, you know.
How long was it from the time when your husband left for the war until you heard from him or saw him again?
Oh, he used to get, like boot camp, he was just down in Rhode Island. He'd take
Because
a
during the
train.
war he was stationed just in
He
the
was
United
in North
States.
Carolina,
North
yeah. As a matter of fact, he was in state teachers college down there. Doing
So he was still in the country, but
He never left the country. He was in I'd say college most of the time. But he was doing teaching recruits as they were coming in how to. I think he was working on planes.
so that must have made
But
you
see, he
feel
was
a little
older.
bit.
He was older, and he could handle kids evidently that were coming in and instruct them, what to do. And I guess he was good at it too.
So at least that it must have put a little sense of peace in your mind to know that he wasn't overseas.
He wasn't overseas, and that was enough, I suppose, peace of mind.
Yeah.
Because I had brothers that were over there that were missing in action, and all this. Bob Dooley was missing for a while.
So
some of them were in the hospital, and no one had heard anything from them for quite a while. And you never knew when the Red Cross was going to tap at the door.
Yeah.
My poor mother, I don't know. That's what I did most of the time. I used to go down to my mother's, or I'd have her come up here.
Could you call him on the phone?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
You just wrote a lot, I guess.
Yeah, we wrote
a
all the
lot
time,
of letters.
No, you wouldn't think of adding that onto your telephone
So
bill.
he couldn't. Could he come home for any holiday or?
Oh yeah, he had time. He'd get long weekends, because we didn't have the money.
Yeah.
He didn't have a weekend, but he'd have to be right back. And we didn't have that kind of money. I got $80 a month, and I had to survive and pay all my bills.
From the Navy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's $20 a week.
Yeah.
That was everything. You don't live long, 4 years on that kind of an income gallivant, You just don't.
So did he come home when the war was over, or was he in even longer after that? If he didn't go in till 42.
He said he put in his time, whatever the Navy required.
4 years.
Yeah. And he was out shortly after, it was over. He was out.
What did you know about the status of the war when it was going on? You mentioned earlier that...
Not too much, because it was just what we got in the morning paper. Because the radio, I don't know, I just couldn't get too much out of it, To me, it was out in nowhere, because he wasn't directly involved.
You probably would have paid more attention if he had been...
If he was in England and they were going to go, I would have been involved more directly,
Yeah.
But I wasn't personally involved. Because every once in a while he'd say, if it keeps up much longer, I'll be going to the coast, California, which meant that he would be going to the islands, Iwo Jima, and, out around there. Because that's where they had the aircraft carriers, and that's what they were wiring the bombs onto. That's what he was doing.
So you mentioned that you for entertainment when he was gone, you did a lot of knitting and reading books.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember some of your favorite?
Oh.
What kind of books did you read?
I can't. They were all the old English books. And even after that was Delta Field and all those. I can't remember.
Delta?
Yeah. Oh, he had a whole series of it. Delta Field. I'm trying to think of what...
Did you go to the movies much, or was movies?
No.
Was hard with the baby?
Really didn't, because you just had to have a sitter, and I didn't walk around at night. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing. You just stayed home.
Hard without a...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, I think I was out enough during the day, I would go to Elsa's or go down to my mother's. On weekends or something, Caddy would come up here,
Yeah.
And just quiet, really.
Was
When
there
I
ever
look
a
back
time...
now, I do more running around now than I ever did. Here I am, 70 years old. I do more running around and entertaining and gallivanting than I ever did in my life. So, don't laugh when I say I went up to Rockport to hear
Making up for lost time.
Yeah. So.
But I'm sure that must have been a real hard time to be alone and not have a car
But I
and have a baby.
never, everybody else did the same thing.
Yeah.
Either that or they were out working, some working the night shift, you know. But I didn't know anyone that,
Probably your...
that was married then.
Yeah.
See, I was married and they weren't. The ones that were working, I didn't know them. I didn't associate with them, you know. So, I don't know.
But probably, don't you think maybe you're, like you mentioned before, because you had the 10 kids and you had to learn to take care of yourself, and it was up to you that
Yeah.
if you had been brought up like your neighbor there, the girl was
Oh, yeah.
an only child,
Yeah.
that she might have faced this period of time differently. You
I'm
think?
sure she did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how. She probably went off to college. I don't know.
Yeah. How did you first hear that the war was over? Do you remember?
On the radio. Yeah. And my first reaction was to walk down to church. Thank God. I remember walking down Green Street, and everybody was walking to church.
Everybody. Must have been a
Yeah.
neat feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
That's
how
where
you
you wanted
celebrated.
to go. You know, because you kept saying if there is an end to this, you know, there's got to be. You know,
Yeah.
And people were praying for it.
Yeah.
Because things were getting real bad, you know.
Right. The bombs were
Yeah.
killing thousands by the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you met your mother there, or the whole neighborhood, huh?
Yeah. Well, see, this isn't.
Oh, right. Your mother lives
Yeah.
in Winchester. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how soon did your husband come home after that? But you think it was
About 2 or 3 months.
2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Did he return home a changed man? Was he different after the war
No.
at all?
No,
You think?
I don't think so. No.
What about your brothers that had been overseas? Were they?
Well, see, by that time, I had been separated and away from the house 5 or 6 years, you know? And they were only, Tommy was still in school when I got married. And I was married a couple of years before, maybe 3 years, you know, maybe 4 years before he went in the service. And I didn't see much of them, you know. They were off working.
But you don't know of any of them that had a really hard time adjusting back to.
Pete did.
I mean, from what we've read, a lot of the women, you know, like Rosie the Riveter, had taken over all the male jobs, and some men had a hard time finding work after the war.
They did. They all did. Yeah, adjusting. Yes, they did. They had a hard time finding a job. We were lucky because he went right back to Bethlehem Steel.
Where he had worked before
Yes,
the war.
yeah. And there was definitely a job waiting for him. He knew it, you know.
But did he take, do you know that if the job that he had waiting for him was done by a woman while he was gone?
No.
Because many of them did work on the ships.
Oh, yeah, no, he didn't.
No.
He was, what do you call it, launch operator. He took the motorboats, you know, from one base to another with men, the working equipment and stuff, the men on there.
So he
It's
came
like
right
the
back
Coast
to the
Guard.
same job.
Yeah.
So he was fortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, because some of them didn't, really. It was bad. I think my mother had a hard time, more so than I realized, but she never talked about it. With the boys, because Paul especially, he was in the medical, and he saw an awful lot of
Casualties.
yeah, and he gave an awful lot of blood that people never knew. He always had his arm out, giving the direct transfusions, you know, right there, you know, which wasn't too good, didn't settle too good with him. I don't think. He saw too much of hurt, you know. Broken bones, and he wasn't a medical person at all. You know, this is just what he happened to fall into.
Yeah. So, do you feel your married life was different before the war versus after the war? I mean, you had certainly learned to be a new woman with all your responsibilities.
Yeah.
Did you give all those up again, or did you continue to maintain the household, like paying the bills?
No, I did. Yes, I did.
You continued all that.
Yeah. But we always sort of did it together, so it wasn't hard for me to do it while he was away and to make decisions, because and he would be back and forth and would write, and there wasn't, I couldn't do anything that was different anyway,
But when he came home and he was here, he took over the loading of the stove and the shoveling.
Oh,
and
absolutely, yeah.
But you kept up paying the bills.
Oh, yeah, that was no big deal.
And all that.
We didn't have that many. We didn't have that much to work with. It was no big deal.
Yeah.
You had so much for we sort of rationed everything. So much for groceries and so much for, we knew what our heat and what have you was going to be. We did.
Yeah. You didn't have to worry about how much to spend on going to the movies and going out to dinner, because you just didn't do that.
We knew if we could go or not go.
Yeah.
And we didn't do it. We didn't.
At least when he came home, he
keep up with the Joneses or anything like that. We could do, and we weren't ashamed to say that. No, we just can't. We're not going to do that. We can't do that. Yeah.
So when he came home, you had to get another car, or was that
another car?
Was that still working?
Yes, he did. No, we got another car.
Yeah.
I thought you would say one for me.
Oh no.
No.
Yeah.
No, of course he had to get another car. Yeah.
So that
was pretty well. That one that we had was pretty well on its way out anyway.
Yeah.
And I think the boys did a good job on it when they were home. They got home ahead of him. And they had a good time with it.
Yeah.
So, yes, we had to get another car. And I think shortly after that, our heating system blew up. We had to get a new heating system.
And Linda was born.
And Linda was born, yeah.
So life became
back to the old routine again.
But wasn't the, let me see, after the war, the rationing stopped?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so you had a little more to, you could do a little more.
It was only myself, and Carol. The ration didn't bother me,
During the war?
No, it was butter and stuff like that,
So you never really felt like you had to give up much?
No.
During that time?
No. I mean, I wasn't feeding the family.
Yeah.
The gas was rationed. You had to be people that, you couldn't go running around. You had to watch your gas. You only allowed so much. We had stamps. Sugar.
Yeah.
Wait, how much sugar can you eat?
With one person.
How much cooking was I going to do? One person. So I don't think if it was money, I could have used it. That kind of a thing.
But you just made do with what you have.
Yeah.
Right. Looking back, do you consider that time of your life when you were alone with Carolyn one of your hardest times, or what was?
No, that wasn't really. No, wasn't. I get more lonesome now than at that time.
But if you were to describe your best years as maybe the time where you felt the happiest or the most secure, would that be now, or would that be what?
No,
what
it
period
was.
Of time?
It was when they were growing up.
After the war, and when
after
he was
the
home.
war, and we were getting like Christmas time. He would make things for them, and I'd buy the doll and dress the doll, and he'd make the crib or a rocking chair or something.
So that was probably the 50s, late 40s,
yeah,
early 50s.
Toy box or something.
Yeah.
He was always making some little thing, for kids. Yeah.
Those were the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really, we didn't go out that much, Spent our evenings in, I'd sew and do our thing, and he'd work down the cellar, cooking his thing. We didn't,
What do you think your grandchildren, what do you think of their views of life? What are they missing what qualities of life that you...
I think they have too much. Absolutely, they're spoiled to death. They don't know what it is to be without. And they want the best of everything. I don't think that they do enough for their parents. I think the parents have to ask them to do this and do that. They should do it. Just look around and see what has to be done and do it, not be asked as much as they are. They're always asking for a ride here and a ride there, and you know.
Take too much for granted.
Yeah. Never what can I do for you, Mom? That's one thing that bothers me.
Well, they haven't experienced a war yet, you know.
It doesn't have to be a war.
You don't
It's
think
a
so?
whole life. I don't
Yeah.
know what it is. I really
Yeah.
don't know. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to have a war to experience it.
Yeah.
You really don't.
Well, so many, you know,
Mm.
you had come from the First World War and then the Depression. There was such a period. I mean, right now there's been such a period of growth since the 50s.
It is. This growth is really, as I said, just going over to Child World, it was mind-boggling.
See how many toys
The
there.
things, the choices, it must be so confusing to the kids, you know, and the TV.
A few years ago, you visited Ireland for the first time and saw where your parents were raised. In closing, realizing that you could have possibly been born and raised in Ireland if they hadn't come to America, are you glad you're an American, or do you ever wish you had been brought up in Ireland?
Heaven forbid. I don't know how they ever got out of it in those times and at that time. And I don't know how they escaped and get away. Because I can just picture what it was like.
You saw where they were brought up.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's almost the same. Barren, cold. Because some of the sunny days were beautiful, but I could just imagine the cold winter.
Yeah.
And no conveniences whatsoever. They were very lucky to get out of it.
So you're glad that you're
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
an American, fully Americanized,
Oh, yeah.
little Irish American. Did you ever have
Well,
any?
after all, your parents weren't. must
All
have
of us
come
are from immigrant. All of us
That's
are.
what I mean. Yeah.
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 But there was a period of time where even though everyone was an immigrant, they started picking at the minorities and saying, no more foreigners. Yet everyone was a foreigner. You know what I mean?
Everyone was, yeah.
But they started. You never felt growing up that they.
Oh no. See, we were. That was
Like the Italian, like Woburn has the Italian section, and the Irish. When you were growing up, were you supposed to
yes,
stay out
we
of the
did.
Italian section?
Down the foot of no. We weren't brought up that way.
Yeah.
But down the foot of the street was Little Italy.
Yeah.
Right down there, Fowler
Right.
Street was the end of Fowler Street. That was Little Italy.
Uh-huh.
There was a few little bar. Ellie's father had the bar rooms there, the pantry.
Uh-huh.
And then south end was Little Ireland. You might well say down on the pond, down around there. Yeah. But
your
Woburn was mostly
yeah.
Irish anyway.
Your parents didn't care if you married somebody who was Italian or English, or did
No.
they? I'll just insert that stuff later.
They
I'm really
never,
good.
no, they never said. I don't know. They wouldn't say it directly. They weren't that way, they just weren't prejudiced. But among themselves, they might. My aunts and, my mother, they might have said, well, yeah, because my aunt's kids, they all married. Yeah.
So your mother had sisters over here, and
Yeah,
they each
she had
had.
one sister, Anne.
And your father had.
Oh, he had a lot of, he had three brothers and three sisters. And there was a couple more over in Ireland. We visited them. Cousins we visited. They
Yeah.
weren't alive.
Yeah. I'll just insert this last part earlier in the beginning, and I'll end with where I had asked you about whether or not you wished that you were brought up in Ireland.
Oh, God. It was beautiful to visit.
But you wouldn't want to live there.
Oh, no, you couldn't,
Yeah.
I mean, the advantages that are here. And even my mother said she would never want to go there, the advantages that were here,
Yeah.
And she would say, what's to go back to,
But she never saw her parents
No.
again. Did she ever talk about them?
They would write back and forth.
Uh-huh.
She had a sister who was over there. And a brother. She had a brother here, too. No.
Well,
Must have been hard, I don't even know, you know.
I'm sure, to up and leave your family
Yeah.
behind.
But see, once she got here, evidently, this was her home. Her home was her castle. She had her large family. You know, she had all she could handle. You know.
You think that's maybe why she had a large family, because she had left such a family behind, or?
No,
Or she
I don't
just-
know. I really don't know.
She just liked kids.
Hmm.
Well, thanks for sharing your life. I
Well,
think-
it was a good
yeah.
life, really.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what it would be like to grow up and not have brothers and sisters. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.